in September 1st in 1987, the United States government changed the federal sentencing guidelines to what they call now mandatory minimums across the board.
And they became harsher, right?
What's that?
The punishment became harsher after 87, right?
Oh, Jesus, yeah. I mean, well, so that's what I'm going for here, because now, it used to be when you get caught, a guy got caught, say, in a van of shit, or, maybe a boat got popped or some shit somewhere along the line, somewhere up and down the coast like that, they would get, 12 months, 14 months, 18 months or some shit like that. And, in 6 months or so, they're on their way home, and we're keep the rent paid and the lights on and the family fed, and they just go right back to work again, and that's how we were all working under that same assumption. But then all of a sudden, here comes Operation Peacemaker, which is the operation that wound up taking my crew and everybody that I was working in Southwest Florida with that in 1988. They took us down, and little did we know that the guidelines now, getting caught for doing what we're doing, one indictment had 4 counts. Each count on the indictment was worth a mandatory 10 years to life and $1 million fine. So if you got one indictment, you had a mandatory 40 years to life and $4 million in fines. That's how significantly the laws changed. And we had no fucking clue, man. So now everybody's, started getting faced with these life sentences, and what the government finally, they did this. What wound up happening was done by design rather than by accident. Let's just say it this way. And they gave what they were, when they started arresting, making and effecting these arrests. I was one of the first 38 to go. The Naples Daily News front page at that time was, huge news. Area part of U.S. pot dragnet. And the subtitle said 38 helped import over 150 tons. I think you may have, there it is right there, right in the middle, 150 tons. And then they've got my name down there somewhere like this. And
is that a surprise, or did you feel the heat coming?
No, it just came out of the blue, man. None of us had a clue.
I mean, but even making that kind of money, okay, you're not spending it. And did the old timers say, hey, listen, get a lawyer on retention. Start paying a guy to, like, God forbid this day comes down. I mean, you guys just winged everything, huh? Like, screw it. I mean, no lawyer, no guy on retention, no inside cop. You're making that kind of money. You're not trying to bribe. Back in those days, you could bribe anybody. Cops are making $5 grand a year. You can't bribe a cop.
Well, yeah, you know what? Bribery was a very very efficient method by way of doing things in those days, because you quite simply offer a guy 10 times his annual salary to maybe go over down the street and take a nap for a couple hours. What the fuck do you think he's going to do, dude? He's going to go take a nap for a couple hours. That part was easy. Although the way we were operating and the things we were doing and the focus that we were putting was on keeping our asses from getting busted at the time we were doing what it was we were doing, by keeping our equipment upgraded, having the fastest, keeping on top of it. The counter surveillance technology that we were using was as good as, if not better than, what they were using against us, because one of the crew guys I had working on my Everglades City crew was one of the Everglades Park National Rangers. He was a ranger. He introduced me to the Cuban fella in Miami that was selling the government their counter surveillance technology, only I was buying better shit than they were buying, because I could afford better shit, so that's, and plus the boats we were using. When I finally started doing my thing, and you're talking about unloading, multiple nights and, 20 tons, 30 tons, 40 tons, and that 150 tons that they alluded to there, when I got arrested that day, 150 tons plus, they didn't find out till about a week or so later that was only about a week's work. They decided that, that's when they figured out, oh, whoa, we really opened up a can of worms here, man.
Yeah. Tim, we'll get into we'll arc it out, or we'll kind of get into the arrest and what happened after. But before we get there, who was the buyer? Was it, Cuban organized crime? Were the Colombians? Who were the distribution? So they get it from your crew. What organization was buying from you guys?
Well, there were I don't know any particular organization by any specific name out of Miami, but it was basically I kept a distance, I kept a barrier between myself and that element
Smart.
through Carlito and Leo, my two Cuban partners in Miami, by not knowing. I don't want to know who the fuck's, pot I'm hauling. I don't care. And the beautiful thing about it was, when this takes me right back, and it has everything in the world to do with, the violence aspect of things. When people say, oh, violence, and what if you lost their shit? Well, dude, if I can make you $10 million off of $300,000, take that math and go a little bit further. Take that $300,000 and divide it into 9,700,000, and then you get the number 32.
Yeah.
What that number 32 represents is the number of chances I've got to get your next load in before you've lost money. I can lose the next 31 loads in a row, but I get the 32nd one in. You've still made money. You haven't lost money yet. That's the ridiculous.
Was that conversation ever had? Did that ever happen?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's just
lost loads.
Common sense. The math was already done for them. Yeah. Well, I just spent $300,000. I just made 10 million. Well, fuck. So now, you're not going to kill the guy that just made you 10 million off of 300,000.
Well, it's interesting because I don't know about the pot business, but what it explained to me in kind of the cocaine importation at the time is it was, I think, 3%. So he's saying if I lose 97%, I still make my money at 3%. But the seize rate is actually 3% for coke, right? So if his seize rate is 3% and he holds on to 97%, he can make $300 million. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's the opposite.
You hear the stories. We watched that movie Cocaine Cowboys, and the guy in it, he's like, you had to kind of prove to them that the load got snatched. Like if it got seized, it was in the paper, and they're like, okay, it was in the paper. We see that. Yeah. You couldn't just say, oh shucks, your load was lost. Let's get them next time, guys. No, they would kill you. They would. The cartel. If you lost,
no. He's on the hook financially, but he was willing to accept the risk because if you lost 31 out of 32, he was still square. So Tim,
something that goes hand in hand with exactly what you guys are talking about. Yeah. We never left it to chance, like you're explaining it. We were never having to figure out a way of how to explain. Oh, your fucking load got taken. Every single time, it didn't matter if it was my boat going to Colombia, Jamaica, Venezuela, Central America, wherever the fuck it was going, or if it was their boat. However it was we were doing it, there was always one guy paid to do one specific job, and that was to count every fucking piece that came on that boat when it was loaded. They would have a guy on the boat paid to do exactly the same thing my guy was doing. Count every fucking piece that went on that boat so that when their counts added up, the boat left Colombia and it's off.
Don't laugh at me.
To Miami, they're counting the shit when it's coming out of the trucks and it's piling up and stacking up in Miami. That count should match because now, not only that, if something happened to that shipment along the way, that guy's on the fucking boat. He's going with it. They're going to know exactly what the fuck happened to their shit if it gets taken. So there was always that bit of a, safety valve built in.
Don't laugh at me, Tim. But was there like a bill of lading? Like, hey, there's 30 bells, or was it all up here?
Who's gonna sign for this?
No, man, serious. No, I'm transporting $140 million worth of shit. I want it written down somewhere.
No, it's funny. It's funny you should say that, but about a bill of lading. What wound up happening, as a matter of course, over the years, particularly after I started doing my thing, was I would fly to Colombia, and I would, if you're reading the book, you'll figure out how how I was purchasing, and out of these mountains of fucking bales in the jungle and shit. And what I would do is if I'm tasting this stuff because I'm poking it with a poke. This guy give me a 6-foot piece of bamboo with a piece of pipe on the end of it, cut